Hey everyone, Selwyn here from WynnStrength.com, wrapping up another week of the Average Savage 2.0 training program written by Greg Nuckols over at StrongByScience.com. What I'll do is I'll leave links below for the program and the website. Amazing resource that I rely on heavily. Go check them out. So if you missed out on last week's episode, make sure to check that episode out where I've actually refocused my next 21 weeks. I've kind of reset the program just with the new updates that Greg has provided. So I'm actually focusing on the hypertrophy side of things, or lowering a lot of the weights being used while increasing the amount of reps that we're doing, a lot of that volume. So a lot of the stuff that I've ignored over the last couple of years is coming back to haunt me, and it's definitely showing in the training. So week one got off to a pretty rocky start, but I was expecting that because, again, if you haven't done something, you're not going to be good at it. And the second week, kind of a little bit better, but still on that same trend of my body's like, what are you doing? Because you haven't done this style of training for a significant amount of time. So I'm kind of waiting for the adaptations to kind of kick in and just kind of fighting through the grueling workouts that we're doing right now. The weights aren't that heavy. So the first 5 reps are fine because that's kind of what I'm used to. Just doing anything under 8 reps was kind of my wheelhouse for the longest time. So all the weights under the 8 is kind of fine. And then once that 9th, 10th reps hits, it's like I hit a wall. And it just feels really difficult to complete the rest of that set, but that's where those adaptations are going to occur because my body just isn't used to it. So again, if you missed out on the first week, the weights that I'm using were the same numbers that I used for the first iteration of the program. Greg does warn you to dial those down a little bit, especially if you're like me and you haven't done this style of training in a very long time. So take that advice and kind of lower each of those weights. It's something I've started done something that I've been doing after this week, just because week 3 is going to kind of be a waste if it's just bad. So we've lowered some of those weight inputs so that hopefully the recommendations for week 3 kind of kick in, and we're kind of dialing it in with a lot lower weights in order to build up a bit more of that response, so we're not stressing the body too much. I didn't get a lot of extra work in this week, just like the first week. I'm mainly focusing on the core of the program just because I was feeling so gassed after the core movements that are prescribed, and I didn't really have the energy or the mental fortitude to continue and throwing those extra auxiliary and accessory movements. So hopefully week 3 we're going to be able to throw those in there and include at least some extra activities and get some more of those even things like chin-ups and rows I wasn't able to really do this week just because I was feeling gassed by the end of the 2-3 exercises a day that it's prescribing, just because of that sheer volume my body just wasn't accustomed to. So that being said, I'll throw over to some training footage for the week. As you can see, things are slightly getting better, but we're still not there yet. So you'll notice with the SSB back squat, you'll notice on the ascent of my torso, there's actually a double movement in the torso. When you'll see it is, you'll see my hips hit a point where they rise slightly faster than my upper back. And how you'll see this is that there'll be a change of angle in my back coupled with my body rising, but the weight's kind of staying the same height. If anything, they kind of move a little bit forward. You can't really tell from the angle here. But what this is caused by is the camber of the SSB, with the weights kind of pulling me forward as I stand up. And this is because of how the weights act when they move. It just means I do need to focus on keeping my back a little bit more tight and get better at bracing while I squat. It also means that I tend to squat with a more upright torso angle relative to my low bar back squat, which should help with my regular squat once I transition back to a straight barbell squat. It'll help me when the back squat with a regular barbell goes funky and I get tipped forward, so I am able to engage some more of that training in the upper back to pull that weight backwards. Now I move on to some close grip incline bench press. The incline bench variant helps with extending that range of motion, just because we are still touching the barbell on the chest each and every rep, and the close grip will help to activate more of the triceps as opposed to a regular bench press. With the close grip bench press, you notice I do like to keep my elbows as tucked as possible, and that means that there will be a lower touch point on the chest. Your triceps should kind of be rubbing against your lats as you come down there just to get that full activation there. Next up will be the slingshot bench. I'm a big fan of the slingshot as an overloading bench press accessory, generally used as an accessory to the flat bench, but I have been experimenting this training block by using the slingshot as my only flat bench variant. I wanted to give my shoulders a break from bench pressing and also wanting to shift my focus more towards overhead pressing. So because of the way this slingshot acts, it will help reduce some of those stresses on the joints, the shoulders, the chest, everything like that, which would help me focus a little bit more on overhead pressing this training block. Next up, we have the barbell rows. Again, this training block, I'm utilizing the more common row variant where the barbell just floats in the air. I'm not touching the ground, but between each and every rep. I do like to alternate between this and the pendlay row each training block, so I don't miss out on each one. Here we have regular deadlifts. My body still hasn't caught up to the higher rep demands of the new training block with the deadlifts here, so probably a sign of poor conditioning and GPP, but it also occurs on day 3, which might be a sign of insufficient rest from the first 2 days of training. I've also shifted again towards that SSB squat, which I think stresses the back a little bit more than a regular barbell back squat, which just means I'll have to give my body a little bit more time to adapt for these deadlifts here. And you notice that I am focusing more on trying to get that full range of motion with a full upright lockout at the top of the deadlift there, as opposed to last week where I was a little bit more fatigued during the deadlift reps. I am using straps as well, just because I think the grip is my limiting factor here. I also don't like to do alternating grip for higher rep stuff, just because it doesn't feel that comfortable, and I notice a lot more of that helicoptering of the deadlift where one side rotates out away from the body just because it is underhanded. And here we have the front squat. I have been getting my wrists and shoulders used to the front rack position. I used to have to use wrist straps to let my arms kind of get out of the way. I think the higher volume, this training block has helped me adjust my body positioning, so I'm definitely maintaining a more upright torso than I used to, just because the lighter weights allow me to adjust the body a bit better. But I have been hunching my shoulders forward a lot more in order to give that barbell a little bit more space to rest on the shoulders rather than having that weight shift onto the wrists. And I think having the weight shift forward onto the wrists caused by a more forward torso lane was definitely aggravating my wrist joint in the past, but now we're kind of working on that higher rep. And wrapping up here with the high incline bench, I'd like to say this is more of an overhead press accessory rather than a bench press accessory. My grip width has my pinkies on the knurling rings. I find the wider grip slightly more comfortable and helps take a little bit more of the triceps out of the movement, which should help focus more on the delts and upper pecs, which should help transition over to that upper overhead pressing. So that'll wrap up the second week of training. Make sure to subscribe to the playlist so you don't miss out on the future videos, as well as that final overall rating and review that I'll provide once everything wraps up in about 3 months here. So this has been Selwyn from Wynn Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.